Hey guys, this is Brian T. Atkinson. You're watching the one, the only Time to Connect.
Hey, Brian T. Atkinson, how are you, man? Thanks for taking the time to connect.
Good, man. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. Where are you coming to us from?
Austin, Texas.
You're in Austin. Have you been in Austin most of your life, or have you moved around? How long have you been in Austin?
I grew up in Pennsylvania. Got out of there as soon as I could, and kind of went west, like Cleveland for a while for college. Got kicked out. Back to my hometown in Pennsylvania. Went to Ocean City for a while. Then I went to Iowa City for grad school, and I was sort of on my way to San Francisco, but I couldn't afford it. There's just no way. So I headed down here about 16 years ago. I think last month I came down for South by and stayed for 16 years now.
Wow. Wow. Well, I was thinking for some reason you lived in Houston. Maybe it's because of our mutual friend, Matt Harlan. And by the way, we have another mutual friend. We probably have a number of them, but Kyle Littlefield said to say hello to you.
Oh yeah.
Kyle's actually the drummer in a couple of projects of mine. We're doing some recording together right now. Well, listen, man, I'm going to put links in the show notes so people can look at your website and read about you. But you're an author, producer, and record label owner. Obviously, I want to talk about these things. I'm probably primarily interested in the books, but I definitely want to hear about these other things. Let's start, though, if you don't mind, with a little biography. You started getting into it in terms of being from Pennsylvania, but maybe just how do you kind of tell the story of who you are in a nutshell?
I'm a dude who likes music and likes to write. That's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, I wrote for newspapers and magazines for a long time, and it took me 10 years to get my first book, get a deal for my first book. It was brutal. I got, I think, 117 rejection letters. Most smart people would have quit around 40. But I don't know. I can't tell you why. I thought I had to get that book published. That just was my thing, and it worked out, and I've stuck with the same publisher ever since. You're in College Station, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So A&M is they're my people. And a shout out to Tom Lemons, who's probably the best editor that Texas has ever known.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom is working with one of my projects now. I think good dude. Well, cool. And what do you attribute that relentlessness to? It's just something that in you just knew you wanted to do it, or what was it? Why were you so persistent?
I honestly can't tell you. I mean, it's just something that I needed to do. I don't know why. It's not like these books that I do are going to change the world or anything. I mean, I can see it if I was like some nuclear physicist and I had this like I was gonna cure cancer, but I just wanted to do it. I don't know. It was just interesting. It's interesting. Books are interesting to me. That's it. Period.
One thing that just came to mind is a quote from Joseph Campbell, who remember that PBS series he did with Bill Moyers, and that thing was huge for me. But I remember him saying, "There's something in us that knows when we're on the beam." On the beam was his choice of words, but when you know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, what's right for you, there's something in you that knows, and clearly you did. Well, kudos to you for hanging in there. And now you've got, is it 8 books published?
I have 5 out. 2 are sitting there with Tom and 8M, and then I'm working on my 8th right now. Yeah.
Gotcha. Definitely want to get into that. Let me ask you a question that I like to ask people, which is, what were you like as a kid?
Give me a specific age and I'll tell you, because it was very different.
Okay, well, let's start with, the 7 to 10-year-old period.
Yeah. Well, I can only tell you what my parents tell me, which is I was pretty much a perfect kid. I was a little towhead, really like bleached blonde looking hair. My mother would dress me in Izod t-shirts and I always tucked them in. And I ended up like this. And everything went on that sort of route. I won the principal's award for being the best student in 8th grade in the school, and then the next year I discovered girls, and then beer, and then everything pretty much went to hell after that for a couple years.
Were you a voracious reader even as a kid?
I love baseball history. So I would read that like crazy, but it wasn't, I really thought I was reading. I just loved it. Everything about it. I loved like the Ty Cobb, Honus Wagner era, like back then. And so I kept up with it through like probably like the mid 80s or so. And then I kind of got off track, but that's pretty much all I read.
Do you have any of the old, I would think that Will Johnson's baseball paintings might appeal to you.
Probably, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know that I've seen them. I mean, I
Ah,
read your book,
yeah.
and I can't remember right now.
Well, this is one of his of Bill Frisell and Thelonious Monk, which I commissioned, but he normally does baseball players and a lot of them from that era that you described. So you should check them out. They're really cool.
Yeah.
And then well, I still want to explore kind of your relationships to books and how that evolved over the years. So when you were young, you read a lot of baseball history. Did you were you an English major in college?
Yep.
Yeah. And were there periods or particular writers that appealed to you that meant a lot to you?
I wish I had a more unique answer. I wish I had something deep, but I was like thousands and thousands of college kids, high school college kids, and Hunter Thompson, I ended up I'm nothing like him in my life or my writing, but that's what interested me. I had a professor in college after I got kicked out of my first college and I was back. My parents taught at the university in my hometown where the tuition was free. So basically, they told me I could screw up all I wanted, but they weren't paying big bucks for it. And this professor kind of pulled me aside after class and said, "Hey, I think you really like this guy," and he gave me Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And the cliche part is it wasn't the writing I was really interested in; it was the booze and the drugs and all of Hunter Thompson's craziness. And then a little later, I found Bukowski and had a pretty deep love story with all that for a while. And then it took a while to grow out of that, but it sort of informed me. I always say, like, I learned good words from Hunter. He ended up being sort of a caricature after a while, but when he was really hot, he used some really good words. And in a side note, the way he called the 72 campaign in real time on the bus for that is unbelievable. But then I learned how to be succinct from Bukowski. He used nothing fancy, 3-word sentences, I did this, but sort of putting those two together, I eventually learned my own style, which was to try to write good words with as few words as possible. So I'm glad that I went through that phase, even though so many, were you into those guys? This seems like a lot of dudes in their 20s were.
Yeah, and I'm considerably older than you. I actually have a birthday coming up in a couple of days. I'll be 67. So yeah, Hunter S. Thompson was big for me. Kerouac was big for me. And I got into a lot of American literature. Hemingway, of course, and Faulkner and Melville and those guys. But yeah, the beats were kind of important to me, and I really dug Hunter. And poets, man, I really spent a lot of time with the poets. For a long time, my PhD dissertation was going to be on 20th century American poetry. I was a big fan of Wallace Stevens, Elizabeth Bishop. My current favorite poet is Billy Collins. Do you know Billy Collins' work?
Not well, but the name is referenced a lot among songwriters I talk to, especially about poetry.
Yeah, he's great, man. If you know the Felice Brothers,
James
and Ian's kind of lyrical style, it's very Billy Collins like. It almost feels like I'm reading Billy Collins. But well, look, man, tell me about. I don't know much about these other aspects of your professional life, producer and record label owner. Tell us a little bit about that.
I don't know much about that either. That's the thing. So my business partner, Jenny Finley, has been in the music business since she was a kid. Her dad, Kent, owned Cheatham Street Warehouse down in San Marcos. And, Todd Snider learned songwriting on their couch, lived with them for like 3 years. A bunch of people like George Strait started there. But anyway, Jenny and her dad had a family band from the time that she was 8 to 18. And then she went into radio promotion, and now she manages James McMurtry, and so like she knows the business stuff. I had no experience at all, but we decided to start a label, and mainly because for our own little projects. You know, it's not just sign a lot of Harlan's on our label, but that's a rare thing where he's a friend and we really liked his record and we wanted to kind of help promote it. But generally it's just for our tribute records that we do. We love doing tribute records. It's so fun to take songs usually that are pretty underappreciated, and maybe we think we can find songwriters who can do them a little differently and sort of shine a light on the music, you know. And we get a lot of, you know, great people coming in and playing songs by people that aren't as well known as they are, you know, and they love doing it too, I think. And so I don't know. I mean, we sort of have a 50-50 business where I do certain things and Jenny does others. We're a yin and yang. We're completely opposite, and we know opposite things. You know, I write the press releases and do some of the busy work online, and Jenny does the promotions, and she's really the producer. Like I produce, I've gotten better over the years, but I didn't know anything about constructing a song from scratch. You know, when we started, I didn't have a clue how she would say, you know, okay, I want the drums on the 2 and the 4, or claps on the 2 and the 4, and then bringing a dobro on just on the third verse, the last 2 lines. And it's just, how the hell do you hear this stuff? You know, so I've gotten a little better, but she's the mastermind behind how the songs are put together. I'm good at deconstructing them when they're together. You know, that's always been my thing. Like, I guess that's what music critics do, you know.
Well, do you write songs?
I am awful. I suck. I tried. I tried when I really wanted to be a poet, you know, when I was in grad school and hang out with the guys at the Iowa workshop and everything. And I tried writing some songs. My lyrics are mediocre and my melodies consist of about 2 notes. I can't hear it. I don't hear melodies. You know, I can play piano, I can play guitar, but I can't do anything original like that. It's baffling, which is probably why I'm so fascinated with people who can do that stuff.
It really is interesting, isn't it? The way we have these natural proclivities, and I mean, I'm a songwriter and I can't not write songs. I write poetry, and I'm pretty obsessed with it. But I'm not a very good musician. You know, I've been playing guitar for over 50 years and I'm still pretty lost when it comes to a lot of things that much better guitar players and musicians that I play with talk about and do. It just never came naturally. And even though I've been at it this long, I'm still just a so adequate guitar player. But songwriting is something that, you know, it's like I'm swimming. It's like it feels so natural. I'm always writing in my head. But these things, clearly, you're wired that way. There's no question about it. You know, it's interesting that you specialize in tribute albums, because that's consistent with the way at least some of your books have been. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I didn't do anything on purpose. Like, sort of the way the Towns book and then most of my other books since are structured, it was not on purpose. It was by necessity, you know. And I don't know. I guess I just do what I like. I mean, I enjoy finding good songs and hearing what Jenny and I, that's one thing we're both pretty good at, is hearing other people do certain songs, and we kind of play games and see who can pick the first thing. We say the same person almost every time. Like, you know, we did a Ted Hawkins tribute. That was our first one. He was a street singer in LA.
Yep.
We did it because well, we did it because we wanted to, but we picked Kevin Russell to be the lead producer on it because he's in my Towns book saying you know, everybody's in there just worshiping Towns and saying he's the greatest poet of our time. And Kev said, you know, Towns is pretty good, but he's no Ted Hawkins. And which I disagree with altogether as a songwriter.
It's so fascinating that he would say that. Yeah.
But anyway, I kind of forget where I was going with that. But yeah, I guess that, you know, it does sort of parallel the books because I'm not really sure why that either. I mean, it's important to me for some reason to make sure whoever I'm interested in has some sort of legacy. Yeah. And I don't, that wasn't a conscious choice either. It just is,
Well,
I don't know.
outside looking in, you look like a shepherd of sorts. You're shepherding the project. You're getting other people to do things, and you're controlling it all and putting it together and have a vision for the way it's supposed to be. And I don't know if it feels that way on your end, but that's what it looks like outside looking in. And man, as you know, I did this book on Will Johnson, and that I got the idea from your Towns book originally. And thank you for that, by the way.
Okay.
And you may have heard me say this before on other episodes. I read that book and I said, "Oh, this is perfect to do with Will, because I've known Will for many years, and like you, I wanted him to be heard. I wanted people to get to know him, and I thought this will be relatively easy, because most of the other people will do most of the writing. It ain't easy. It
Well,
ain't easy.
is the Will book, is that your first book?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's different. I mean, Towns book, it not only took me 10 years to get a book deal, it took me that long to put together the least amount of interviews I've ever had in a book, because at the time I was writing for like No Depression, American Songwriter, and Relics, and all of those kind of magazines. But that doesn't do a whole lot for you as far as managers and publicists go, for taking the time for their client to take however much time to do nothing to promote their own career, and most people generally want to highlight people they're into, but when you're not established, it's tough. I mean, at this point, I can pretty much get most people who have time, and I can text half of them, but that first book
Yeah.
was tough. And
Yeah.
I think there were only like 44 people in that book. And I would say well over half of the publicists or managers I went to said, "Can you tell me who else is in this book? Tell me who your publisher is." Well, I didn't have a publisher for those 10 years. So I had to tell people I was trying to get a book deal. And I got a lot of people like, "Come back when you got a deal." So to this day, I always say, "Hey, I'm doing a book for Texas A&M University Press."
Yeah.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot easier, first of all. But yeah, man, I hope you keep going. I like the book, and I can guarantee you, as of the minute it gets published, it will be way easier the next time.
Well, thank you for that. I'm thinking, if I do it again, and I probably will, I'm thinking Bill Frisell might be a good candidate, simply because he's a lot like Will, in the sense that, I mean, he's a lot bigger than Will, a lot more famous than Will, but he's similar to him in that, one, he's an incredibly nice guy, just a genuine, wonderful human being that no one has a bad word to say about him. Two, he's, to the people who know him, I think they would be more than willing to sing his praises, because they feel like this guy is such a gem, and people need to know about him. So anyway, well, cool. So let's see, you've done books on Nanci Griffith, Todd Snider, Roky Erickson, Mickey Newbury, Ray Wylie Hubbard, Townes Van Zandt. You co-authored the one on Cheatham Street Warehouse.
Yeah.
And what are you working on right now?
This one's a little left field. And it's the first time I've been allowed to go out of Texas. And it's on a songwriter named Judee Sill, who is was peripheral to the Laurel Canyon scene in California in the early 70s. And there's actually a documentary that just came out. The day I discovered her, which was in like November or December, was the day that this documentary premiered in New York City at a film festival. It was really weird timing, but she's someone I've never heard anything like. Just blew me away. And I'm probably about 55 interviews in, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going with this, because I just figured out the other day it's about the music. All my books are about lyrics, and everyone, I'm talking to like composers and arrangers, and it's a language I have to sort of brush up on. I'm talking to a Bach expert on Wednesday. Like, it's just not my wheelhouse. But and her songs are about like spirituality and stuff. It's just not my thing, but these songs are like breathtaking. And anyway, so yeah, but until now it's been the Texas singer-songwriter, and you keep doing the nice guys, because I usually get the assholes. I just and it's, I like the ones who are difficult, but their music is great. Judee, also not Texas, but she was notoriously a bad person to a lot of people. You know, it's just, but she wrote this music that was crazy. And yeah, so
yeah, interesting. Will you you may not even want to reveal it, but I'm sure you're already looking past that one to the next book. And who are you, or who are some people who you've, if you do get to it down the road, who you've thought about maybe putting a book together on?
well, I kind of laugh when you said that, because every time I start a book, Jenny starts throwing ideas at me like crazy. I spend like 5, 6, 7 months trying to find my next idea, and it's like a desert out there. And then all of a sudden I get it. Tom says, yeah. And then she says, what about this? What about this? What? I'm like, I just got the idea, man. Like, I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, I have started a bunch of books that either were stopped by, you know, widows or whatever. I kind of like to get some of those going again. One of which is John Prine, which I got fairly deep into before that got shut down. But I don't know, man. I mean, it seems when I'm in between books, it seems like I've gone through, you know, most Texas songwriters I can write about, and then all of a sudden there are dozens. Sorry, that's my phone. Dozens and dozens just start coming out. So I don't know. Who'd you like to see a book about?
Well, Prine, I'm so glad you mentioned him, because I've read the one book that I've seen about him, and I wasn't frankly all that impressed with it. And I feel like this is somebody who, this is really due. Somebody's got to put out a really nice book about John Prine. So that's one. Patterson Hood is someone I think is absolutely fascinating, and knowing about his father, and you know about,
well, Muscle Shoals and all that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
he would be a terrific subject for a book. Other than that, has anyone ever done a book on Bob Dylan?
Yeah.
What, speaking of Dylan, what I always ask, because I'm obsessed, and speaking of difficult people, by the way, I'm kind of obsessed with Dylan. He was really, really big for me when I was young. I'm curious, what about Bob? What do you think about Bob? How's he? How have you thought about him over the years? And I'll just throw
I
it up to you.
haven't for a while, really, only because everybody else does it for me. You know, I kind of like to talk about the people nobody knows about.
Yeah.
He's Dylan. I mean, yeah, you're right. You walk into half price books here, you know, and there are like a half a dozen books at all times on him in the music section. There's not a whole lot. I mean, I was going to say there's not a whole lot to say, but at the same time, I'm guilty of pitching Tom a few years ago a book on Willie of all people, you know, because I thought as many books
before Nick's book or after.
This is well after.
Okay.
But this is just a few years ago. But there's no songwriting. Like I was going to do the books I do, like a songwriting legacy book, and there isn't. It just so happened that some guy at the time, I think, was working on a Willie's Picnic book, and they just didn't want to have 2 Willie books coming out at the same time. So they passed. I'm kind of glad they passed. That's when I think I ended up doing Roky next, but which was a weird book, but really weird, but it was fun.
Anyway. Well, Roky is weird, so
yeah.
I see Steve Earle on the couch behind you. I know there's been several books about Steve, but he might be an interesting candidate for the kind of style book that you do. What do you think?
I think that's one of the books that's sitting on my computer halfway done that got shut down.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. And I tell me if you don't want to pursue this, but what do you mean by shut down?
I don't care. They shut it down. I'll talk all day about these things because I worked hard on that thing. But well, what I mean is it's different for everyone. Like it's like a no hard feelings thing. Like so Fiona Prine shut down the John Prine book because she was working with one of the Rolling Stone guys, and people don't quite get that my books are not competition for the other ones. I'm not doing the same kind of book, you know, and they can both come out and everybody can be happy, you know. But that's life. And so she shut that one down. With Steve, his management's really tight, and he works on these, you know, he's doing his own books, and he has been working on this memoir about Townes and Guy and him, which, by the way, was my very first book idea before the Townes book, was to do a book on those 3. They were my first favorites, but Steve's going to do it for me. And so I'll write to his management, who I know pretty well, and say, hey, I want to start this book again. Because initially they just said, Steve won't participate. And I had all these interviews done, and I thought, well, the kind of book that I do that's so interview heavy, if I don't get the okay from the person I'm writing about, they are going to not give the okay to the people who all come to them and say, hey, can I talk to this guy? I mean, it's just pointless to pursue, you know? So I'm convinced that Steve has never heard a word about me trying to do a book, that they just shoot me down. And I should have. I was in, you probably can't see, there's a picture behind me of McMurtry and Steve in the studio over here that I took during Steve's Hardcore Troubadour series show. Jenny took me in with James, and I gave him a copy of the Towns book, and I should have taken that minute to say I wanted to do a book about him, and I've been trying, but that's kind of greasy. I like to be natural, you know. And so it's all right, it's fine. I only had like 35, 40 interviews done for that book. So I mean, I have an archive at Texas State at the Whitliff Collection, and the way I look at it is if these things don't pan out, it's gonna, the work, it's not a book, but all the interviews and all the research goes there, and maybe some kid will pick it up in a lifetime or two and do something, you know.
Another name that just came to mind is Slade Cleaves. I think he would be a character that might be interesting to work
He's
with.
another one, sort of like Todd, who he was not as close, but he kind of came up through the Kent Finley School, you know, and so yeah, I mean, I'm in with him fine. So I've talked about that with Jenny a few times. Why do you think he would be a good book?
Well, A, he's an amazing songwriter. And B, he's sort of an enigma because I don't know that much about him, and you may correct me, but he seems to me to be a guy that is not very well known. I mean, in terms of, do you really know Slade?
You know, like Slade the dude, supposed to Slade the songwriter, or both?
I'm talking about just the man himself. Is he seems pretty close to the vest, and I don't really know who he is. I don't know much about him, and he seems to be happy, kind of content with that. So it would be interesting to see some of those layers, you know, find out what this guy is really about.
I don't know that he would give that up.
Right.
And that's, you know, he obviously.
But others might. You know, people around him have known him in the style that you know, your Towns book, for example. You might hear from other people talking about him in a way that might, without being, you know, too revealing or whatever, might reveal some interesting things about him.
Well, his childhood best friend Rod Picott is a good friend of ours, and I just texted with him this morning. He's coming back to play our house concert series for the 4th time, I think, in 2 weeks. And you know, he would give a certain amount of dirt, but I don't know for a book.
I don't mean dirt, by the way.
I don't mean dirt. Obviously, I don't do dirt in my books anyway. Right. I just meant scoop, like inside information. And he would probably tell me off the record. He probably wouldn't go on the record because he knows Slade well enough to know he doesn't. I don't know why. You know, it's just one of those things. He's very private. And we were hanging out at Kevin Welch's wedding a couple years ago. It was Slade and Karen and Jenny and me sitting at a table, and it's just interesting. He's completely relaxed, but you can just tell it's all pretty surface, you know, and I don't know. It's just how he is, I guess.
Yeah, it's his right. And by the way, I tried to get him on the podcast, and I had him, but when I revealed to is it Karen?
Karen, yeah.
Yeah, that I asked some personal questions that I'm about to ask you, by the way, when we go beyond just, she basically said, nope, you know, if stick to the music, stick to the asking. And, you know, that's not my idea here. I'm not just doing interviews to promote music. I'm doing this to get to know people a little bit and to, you know, let's talk about some other things. So that's fine. That's cool. Let's move into that, by the way. I don't want to take too much more of your time. Let me do some rapid fire questions, if you don't mind. And just kind of first thing that comes to mind, most difficult thing about writing these books?
Writing these books. I mean, I don't mean that in a sort of glib way. I mean, the actual writing part.
Hard work.
And like the Nanci book, sorry if I'm giving you more than you want if you're
No,
looking
it's
for
okay.
just
That's
more.
okay.
But I did Nanci a little differently than the other books. First of all, it was the original manuscript when I was finished was 560 pages or something, and my usual ones are about 270.
Yeah.
It just happened to be during the pandemic. Everybody was home. She had just died. Everyone wanted to talk about her, and
Right.
people were sending me to more people. And the point is, I ended up editing down to about 450 pages.
Yeah.
But I went through that, and instead of having person after person, as I usually do, I was pretty much going paragraph by paragraph. I wanted my idea, and I'm not really sure where I came up with this idea. I just thought one day, I want it to be like watching a documentary where they cut from one person to the other and it just kind of flows, and I think I passed peer reviews and people had good things to say. I was scared to death because I didn't save any of the original transcriptions before I realized that I was halfway into just chopping everything up and moving it all over and moving things 80 pages this way and that way. And I got, oh, Jesus, I did not save. If I don't get this right, I'm not, it's all gone, or I start from scratch. So, so that's a long way of saying also editing. I mean, editing it's tough. And
Yeah.
I edit in my own voice. So like I try to keep people talking like they talk.
Yes.
But the sentences, it's a very much to me like Kerouac in like, I want my lines, even if it's a person talking and it's not me writing, I want it to have a feel of like jazz. I want there to be some long sentences and some short, and just it's got to have a flow like that. Mm-hmm. And so I might turn somebody's 4 sentences into a run-on sentence just to have it go.
Yeah.
And so it's tough. I don't expect people to understand that, but I really don't think people think about that. I don't think people reading think how much work goes into just getting the word together.
It is a lot of work, and I don't. You've probably encountered this. A couple of the contributions in that book of mine are literally me interviewing someone, transcribing the interview, and then turning it into an essay for them, and then giving it to them to edit how they see fit, and then I edit it again.
You know what? When Towns came out, I got a lot of good press for Towns because it was Towns. And one of the things was CMT did a thing. The late great Chet Flippo did a story and pissed me right off because he said something about how the chapter Jack Ingram wrote and the thing that so and so wrote. And I'm thinking, nobody wrote anything, man. This is all my interviews that I edited.
Right.
You ever edit Jack Ingram? That takes days, man. I mean, dude's great. Yeah. I love him, but he talks so like all over the map and then finishes a story 8 stories later and you got to put it in. It's like, don't tell me they wrote that stuff. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you the probably the best essay in my book about Will is Jason Isbell, and I hardly touched it. I mean,
he's great. I remember that one.
Great.
You had 2 back to back. They were pretty phenomenal. It was him on either side of him. I forget.
Was it Patterson?
Probably Patterson. They were like the first 2 chapters, I think.
Yeah. Patterson was hilarious because I worked with him several different Zooms and interviews and tried to help him do it. And when he read Jason's, he said, "All right, God damn it, and now the bar's high, and I'm gonna work hard on this." And he did. He wrote a great one. Okay, man, more questions. This is a Sophie's choice, but and I know it probably depends on who the person is, but if someone said, I can read one of your books, which one what are you most proud of? Which one of your books you're most proud of?
Nanci. At this point, Nanci, but it's hopefully always going to be my last book, but I really, it was the first book. Here's another longer answer than you want. When I started doing this and when the 2 Towns books were coming out that were on the way out when I was working on mine and I knew I had to come up with a new style, I had the one major influence was George Plimpton's Truman Capote book because it was the first, whatever you call it, oral biography, oral history, oral something where it was just interviews. That was what I've always aspired to beat. I wanted to beat it. I didn't want to do as good as that. I wanted to do something better. And Then I read Kathleen Hudson's one of her Texas. It was probably the Women in Texas Music, but it was an interview-based book, probably in the late '90s, maybe, that came out at UT Press. And then there was this other one. Shit, I forget his name, the writer, but it was a Raymond Carver oral biography that was short. It was a University of Iowa thing, like maybe 110 pages. But putting all that together, all the books leading up to Nanci, I knew I didn't get it. You know, because the style wasn't quite the same, but maybe that's why I finally decided with her to chop everything up so much. And I really feel it was the first book I finished and thought, man, like that's a good book. I felt like I was happy with it, which is all I shot for when I was, you know, as my bar. But I really looked back and I thought, I don't know how I just did that. I have no idea. I think a lot of it was a pandemic thing where I was just here for 2 years, and every day I could print out 40 new pages and put them all over my kitchen back there and mark everything up and cut and cut. And it was terrifying. It was really terrifying, but I am very proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations for that, man.
Thanks.
This is another one of those sort of impossible questions. So just what pops up, most memorable show you've attended?
Somebody just asked me the other day how many shows I've gone to, which is probably around like 3,000. Most memorable. Oh, I know what it is. I'll tell you exactly. It was November 11th, 2001. It was Ryan Adams. The day after he played Saturday Night Live, I had gone to see the Denver Broncos. I was living in Denver that afternoon. Went to his show at the Gothic Theater. United Airlines has sent his guitar out from SNL and broken it on the flight, and he still played it. He ended up writing a 3-minute song on stage about it that night. He played a 4-hour and 52-minute show. It was, yeah, I forgot about that. It was the Broncos won, and then I went to see that. It was like the greatest day of my life. It was, yeah, pretty good.
Okay, you can listen to one album for the next month, and that's all you can listen to. What album is it going to be?
Well, out of necessity for my gig, it's going to be Judee Sill's Heart Food.
Okay. After that book's done, what comes to mind as that cherished record that you could listen to over and over again?
I'm not saying it's a tough question to buy time. It's actually a tough question because I rarely listen to the music I love, which is the books I write, after I write the book. I listen to it for however long the book takes, 8-9 months, nonstop. Other than I always have this thing, like with Nanci, I had Beck and the Cranberries for some reason were the ones that distracted me when I needed a little break. But I literally listened to the music on my device for 24 hours a day, every day for that long. And so it's a tough question because those are the ones I would love, but I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't listen to Ray Wylie Hubbard. I can't listen. I don't listen to Towns. We do a Towns tribute once a year here at our house concerts, but I don't listen to them ever. So what would I take right now? It would be the Alexa mix for Beck, but that's not my favorite music. It's just what I like to listen to.
Okay. Well, I think you already answered the next question, which is going to be, what are you listening to now? That's pretty obvious. What pisses you off?
What pisses me off is when people are just mean for no apparent reason and with nothing to gain except something incredibly selfish. You know, like I like when people create stuff. There are a lot of people that piss me off actually right now. The news pisses me off, you know, and watching somebody open the wrong goddamn car door and get shot. And I'll tell you, I went to Home Depot a couple months ago and I did that. I opened this lady's car door because I had just gotten a new car and there are 2 grayish cars, and she had the appropriate reaction. She kind of screamed and looked at me and I said, "Oh crap, sorry." And that was it. Who pulls out a gun?
Right.
You know, or the basketball comes into your yard and you shoot the kid next door. It's just like, that pisses me off. I don't understand people.
Yeah. Do you have any particular philosophy or spirituality or guiding leanings when things are tough for you?
Well, I'm doing a lot of reading into like there's a book here called Autobiography of a Yogi, which is a pretty famous book. This is book, but see, it's for the Judee book, but it interests me. And I do like meditation, breathing exercises and stuff, but it's not really a guiding, you know what I mean? Like, I don't believe in anything other than trusting my gut and generally just trying to be nice to people. You know,
but you do meditate. Do you have a particular style you meditate in? I'm just curious about that.
No, see, it's more of it's a breathing thing. It's because I have high blood pressure. I stress a lot. I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten older, but I just started doing it to just calm the hell down and just relax and get myself sort of centered. And no, it's just a thing on YouTube that I've listened to a bunch of different ones, but it's a 10-minute thing, and it's supposed to be a meditation, but I use it to breathe instead. And it's a chakra thing.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. All right, man. Well, listen, thank you so much. I've got 2 more questions for you. Thank you so much for doing this.
And thank you.
I'm looking forward to the new book, and I'll put the links out there. Hopefully people will check your stuff out because it's terrific. I've got a number of them over there on my shelf, and it's been your work's been very inspiring for me. So thank you for that. My last 2 questions are big, profound questions. I think you sort of answered this one, but I'll ask it anyway. What do you think happens when we die?
Well, if I get my way, I'm going to London.
Yeah, you said you basically don't believe in anything. Do you think that that's it? We're just...
I don't know. I have no idea. I can't see any. I'm the work we do here with books and stuff is nonfiction. It's like I need evidence of whatever I'm going to support, and I'm never going to get that evidence. So I'm never going to really believe. But I'm not chicken enough to say like, ooh, maybe. So I'm going to ride the fence. I just don't know. And so the best I can do is try to live the best life I have, which is all I know I got, and see what happens.
Are you okay with not knowing?
Yeah, because I mean, what are you gonna do if you're the one dude who knows? What the hell are you gonna do with that information? I'm fine.
My point here is, for thousands of years, philosophers have struggled and wrangled with these ideas and been tortured by them. Whereas a lot of people say, you know, I don't know, and I'm okay with that. I'm not worried about it. And is that more the camp you fall into?
Yeah, I mean, these philosophers didn't try to line up interviews with Steve Earle either. You know, we all have our battles. That's just not mine.
Okay. As a writer, I think that you would be a really terrific candidate for this last question. You get to write your epitaph, or let me just put it. No, let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
You get to. Was it Ben Franklin who wrote on his, I forget what do you call that on someone's headstone? It's and his said, "Here lies BF, printer, food for the worms." What do you? Let me just rephrase it completely. What do you hope people say about you when you are dead and gone?
I don't know. I hope they say I did good work and I was a decent dude. Really. Jenny's pretty much in charge of writing what goes on my headstone. If she can beat Bukowski, don't try. I mean, come on.
Is that what his says?
Yeah, that's good.
That's awesome. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you again. I really appreciate you taking this time, and keep doing this great work.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right. Take care.